Good morning. How is everyone today? Okay. I won't ask again, I'm sorry. Just full disclosure, I'll tell you, from a preacher's perspective, it's it's going to be a pretty good day, pretty good morning when you get a kiss in the green room. So, full disclosure, my wife was back there. Anyway, this morning we are concluding the brief series we've been looking at together through the book of James. If you remember, if you've been with us for any length of time, whether in person or online, some months back, if you remember, we went through Romans together, and you remember the road trip and all that we did there. And as we were doing that, of course, we were praying towards revival, and then of course, we set some time aside for the Christmas season to focus on that, because that's worth it in and of itself, right? And so we did that, and then we've been working through James for the last 4 Sundays, now 5, with the intention of building on the Romans series. So, just an idea of what we're doing here, the whole thing is starting next week, we're starting a thematic series with the design and the desire to spark an increase or an interest, if you would, in being more like Christ or being more kingdom-minded. And a fair warning that I think is worth pointing out as we do this: when God starts to move and His people respond in a positive way like we are seeing the beginnings of, Satan starts to work extra hard to stop that. So be on the alert, be aware, more than ever be vigilant. And you remember the series title, you saw it just a moment ago there on the screen, 5 Steps to Being a Better Christian according to James. And each week we've moved through a chapter, right? Chapter 1 through 5. And we have moved each week, in chapter 1 you see it, we reminded ourselves it's not just Sunday. It's not just a Sunday thing. It's not just that one time a week. And then we, focused on what's important. It just doesn't matter, does it, or does it? And then Pastor Brian did an amazing job of reminding us to watch our tongue, the importance of being careful how we speak and what all goes with that. And then last week, we focused, of course, on what all the fuss is about. And then this week, as we wrap up James, we're reminding ourselves it's worth it. Absolutely. And as we do most every week, we want to give ourselves some visual aids to remind ourselves of that. And I saw this interesting article online. I wanted to share with you some things. And so we have some images. We'll move through them real quick. It's a top 10 list, not 11. It was only 10, and I didn't really want to find the 11th thing to add 11 to it. But it's listed as the 10 most expensive things in the world, believe it or not. So look at this, number 10. The domain name insure.com. I'm sure they'll get a lot of hits after this. It sold for $16 million for one website address and became, according to Guinness Book of World Records, the most expensive domain name ever sold. Now look at number 9. All right, that's pretty, right? That is a 201-carat gemstone watch said to be valued at $25 million. And you thought your Apple Watch was expensive. All right, number 8, look at this. The Graph Pink Diamond, said to be worth $46 million. Or did I say that wrong? Yep, I said it right, $46 million. I'm making sure I didn't back it up. Then, for the car people out there, 1963 Ferrari GTO, $52 million for a car. Now, don't get me wrong, I love cars. But, number 6, the world's most expensive diamond necklace, what do you think? $55 million for that, believe it or not. All right, how about this? Number 5, this is a painting by Picasso at age 24. It is entitled, and I'm going to tear it up with my southern accent, I know, but Garçon à la Pipe. And it really is. He's smoking a pipe, so it is pipe. I had to make sure. But it's said to be worth $104 million. I need to start painting. Number 4, another painting. This is by Cezanne. The Card Players is the title, said to be worth $275 million. Just give me a bucket of paint, right? All right, number 3. This is a villa. It is said to be the world's second most expensive home worth $506 million. Sounds expensive, right? Well, wait till you see the next one. Number 2, the world's most expensive home. That is a single-family home you're looking at. It is worth $2 billion. It is a 34-story home owned by an Indonesian billionaire. It's designed to withstand an earthquake up to 8.0 on the Richter scale. It includes 3 helipads and has parking for 160 cars. In case you needed some room for your family, I guess, right? And then here, number 1, look at this. A super yacht, they call it, worth $4.5 billion, they say. It is plated with 100,000 kilograms of gold. That's about 220,000 pounds, gold and platinum. It features extravagances such as 18-karat diamond wine glasses. And the yacht itself, listen to this, has a wall that is made of meteoric stone and has genuine T-Rex raptor bone mixed in with it. Do you think any of that is worth it? I mean, don't get me wrong, they can put a price on it, but is it worth it, right? You see the difference where we're going there. Now, instead of thinking about spending money, think of this. Let's think about how we spend our life. In the average lifetime, it is estimated that the average American, listen to this, spends 3 years in meetings. Some weeks I think that seems low, but 1 year watching television, that seems low, but that's what they said. 6 years eating, total time in your life. In your total life, it said that you, on average, spend 6.5 years worrying, 24 years sleeping, and that you spend $89,281 per individual on food. Now, these are older numbers because that's probably your egg budget last month. It's estimated that you consume 9,354 pounds of food in your lifetime, that you make 1,811 trips to McDonald's. That probably doesn't count me with my tea. That you spend nearly $7,000 in vending machines, that you eat over 35,000 cookies in your lifetime, that you eat nearly 1,500 pounds of candy, that you catch 304 colds. On average, you're involved in 6 motor accidents. If you're a man, you're hospitalized an average of 8 times. If you're a lady, you're hospitalized an average of 12 times. Yeah, I know, you get me. But some of those things, they're valid, sure. Some of them not so much. It's numbers, it's estimates, it's what you kind of calculate, right? And we do the same thing with worth. Is it worth it? You know, I've always made no secrets, been open about the challenges that anyone who's in vocational ministry experiences. I've been open about that. Challenges you really don't understand unless you're in it, right? We all say that. You know, when we always say pray for your staff team. There's some amazing folks, but you know, really, every life has challenges. And we don't fully understand one or another unless we're there. But I promise, I know we all do. There are challenges involved in striving to live a biblical, grounded, Christ-honoring life. That's a fair statement. But there's so many more blessings than challenges in any of our lives if we think about it. Sometimes it's perspective, right? And no matter what we're going through, while it may honestly seem like we're going through hell at the moment, it isn't, right? Because, again, perspective. Maybe we just need to slow down from time to time and focus on that. Because remember the old saying, no matter what you're going through, it sure beats hell. And that's good perspective. I know so many people, though, in our own church family right now who are walking through some challenging, stressful, even interesting times. But slow down and think about those blessings. I did that the other day. Made a list. Here's my list. I've been so blessed just in the last few weeks. I mean, these are recent blessings. To spend time with several older saints who, while sure life may have slowed them down physically, they haven't stopped yet, and they still have value in their years and energy at the core of who they are. And you can just see Christ exuding in their lifestyle. I've also had the blessing of seeing a newborn baby in all its beautifulness and its preciousness. And I've also been able to spend time sitting around a lunch table with some pretty awesome friends, brothers and sisters in Christ, and had the chance to listen to them talk about life in general, among other things. Just this past week, not yesterday, but last Saturday as a church family, we celebrated a wedding together, and we saw the beginning of a family and the foundation of a home. what a wonderful, grateful experience, right? And tomorrow we celebrate the memorial service of a saint who finished their race. And I've also been able to spend time with my own family and reflect on where God has brought us and where He has us and the blessings that each of those are in their own right. And just this past week, we were able to take a short trip to celebrate Briley's 17th birthday, and where she was able to deepen an important friendship, and Christy and I were blessed to make some new friends. And I realize that life has its challenges. I know. I mean, my family and I, hey, we're all of us. We're living those. That's life, right? It happens. But it also has so many blessings. And anyone who is a follower of Christ, we know that life this side of eternity ends with the biggest blessing, the biggest pleasure of them all, right? And that's an eternity in His very presence. It doesn't get any better. And we know that. The challenges that we've been issuing ourselves over the last 4 weeks as we've gone through James, they're real. And if I can be candid with you, I know at times it seems like those challenges are staring us in the face. That's how the Holy Spirit works, isn't it, in our lives at times when we need it the most, to keep it right there at the forefront. Almost like He's making us come face to face with a choice of whether or not to truly live for and follow Him or not. Those challenges come. How you, me, or anyone lives their life for Christ or not, we have to answer for that. We only get one life. I'm reminded of the poem that was written by C.T. Studd. He's a missionary who, years past, he served in places like India and Africa and China, and he served with the likes of Hudson Taylor. And he wrote a poem. You'll recognize the title, no doubt. Only one life, 'twill soon be past. You remember? Only one life. Only what's done for Christ will last. And now time doesn't allow me to read the whole poem, so it's worth it if you get time later to look it up. But just the last stanza, let me share it with you. Only one life, yes, only one. Now let me say, thy will be done. And when at last I'll hear the call, I know I'll say, 'twas worth it all. It's worth it. That's what James is talking about. As he wraps up this letter to the believers at the time, we all get tired, and if we're honest, there are times when we simply just want to give up. Or at least we thought about it. Sure, it happens. With all that goes on as a believer in Jesus Christ, we have to realize that life, living for Jesus, simply, it's worth it. And that's what we're going to explore today. Let's look at what James is saying to the believers of the time, to us today, as we look here through James 5 and remind ourselves of this. Only one life. Only what's done for Christ will last. Life, living for Christ, it's worth it, watch this, number one, to not be profane. Look here, please. James chapter 5, verse 1. Listen to this. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. And then verse 5, you have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Pretty strong words, aren't they? There was a problem even then of people being caught up in the things that seem worth it. That's part of the reason we shared those images a few minutes ago of all those insanely expensive by the world standards things of different items, and the list could go on. And we get caught up with things of this world that we think are valuable. You know, stuff, possessions, money, savings accounts, more and more things that just sit around and cause clutter and trouble, really. We prioritize things that will not stand the test of time and eternity, if you think about it. And that's what James is talking about. But James is encouraging them then, us now, to realize that the stuff that seems so good, we oftentimes want so much that we want it too much, really isn't what life is about. Our security is often misplaced, isn't it? We think of profanity as words we speak or maybe curse words, or perhaps lewd gestures, or maybe dirty jokes, or maybe the way someone dresses or something. But getting caught up in getting more no matter what it takes is really the ultimate form of profanity. And that's what James is saying. It's basically telling God that those things, the world's standards, are more important to us than Him and His ways. Do we really want to say that to our Lord and Savior? Whether we're saying it in word or deed, how we live our life speaks to whether we are profane or not. Remember, only one life. Only what's done for Christ will last. Life, living for Christ, it's worth it, watch this, number 2, to be patient. And this is preaching to the choir here. I'm not the most patient person you'll ever meet. Whatever the speed limit is, I want to do 10 miles more. And if somebody else is doing 10 miles more in front of me, I want to do 15. You get where I'm going with that? A lot of us that way. Listen to this, though. Verse 7. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also, James says, be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. You ever wonder when things won't be so hard? Just a fair question. I mean, doesn't it seem at times that we're just as we're getting used to things, and maybe even that dangerous word comfortable, maybe just as everything's lining up, or maybe if you're like me and all the patterns finally coming together, that plan you've had for so long, and it's all working, it looks like it's coming together, and your patterns, and you can see it and all that, and then boom, another blow. Something happens, something changes, something makes it different, or even at times multiple things come at once. Or do you ever even wonder, I mean, let's really be bluntly honest, do you ever wonder, when's God going to set things right? It's a dangerous question, isn't it? I mean, aren't there times when it seems like the only way to get ahead is to maybe do like everyone else does? If I were to just worry about me and what I want and what makes me happy, if I just did life the way everyone else did, it'd be a lot easier. I have so much more stuff. I wouldn't have to worry about near as much. That's what we tell ourselves, right? Why waste my time serving God? Why waste my time going to church? Did you know there's people there? Why waste my time in public worship? Why waste my time in small group? Why waste my time reading my Bible? Why waste my time being the feet of Christ and helping people? Why waste my time dealing with people when everyone else seems to get what they want? Seems. Hear that. Be patient, James says. Just like the farmer. Now, I don't pretend to know very much about farming. I grew up in the city, in Montgomery, Alabama. Not a metropolis, but a fair-sized city, a few 100,000. But on the weekends, we would go to my grandmother's house. She lived out in the country, about a 20-minute so drive from us, just outside of Prattville, Alabama, in Autauga County, and she had a farm. And it wasn't a major commercial farm or anything, but it had a little size to it. A few hundred acres, horses, cattle, pigs, crops here and there. I don't remember exactly what, maybe corn, watermelons, pumpkins. I also don't remember the exact details of the crops, but I do remember seeing the fields after all the hard work. And the other fields are the farms up and down the county highway where she lived nearby that had planted other crops too, maybe cotton or whatever. That was a big crop in Alabama. But everyone would talk about all the hard work that they had just done with planting. And I remember the conversations. And all I saw, though, in my young mind was a vast, barren field with a bunch of dirt, maybe some Alabama red clay, and nothing to show for what they'd done. I mean, it just looked like nothing. And then after a few weeks, you'd start to see progress. Not much at first, but you didn't see anything until the seed, whatever was growing, broke out of the ground. And then you start seeing it rising. Think of this. At first, the ground has to be broken up and upset so that something of value can grow there. But when that's going on, it gets to a point where it looks barren to the untrained eye. If you don't know what you're looking at, it looks like a vast wasteland. Listen, God is at work. It is clear all around us if we pay attention. Your life, my life, even the life of this church, His church, remember, they all belong to Him. The ground may have to be broken up so that something of value can grow there. It may take some time to see progress. It starts underground, away from the natural eye. But if you're in tune with God and Him at work, then you start to see progress. Oh, it may seem slow at first. I mean, it's not our timetable, right? Because remember, we're not patient. We want everything yesterday. And it's getting to where that's not quick enough. Last week's better, God. But He's working, and you'll see it, and you'll see that progress. James says, just be patient like the farmer. Only one life, only what's done for Christ will last. Life, living for Christ, it's worth it. Watch this, number 3, to not protest. Look at verse 9. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. James talks a whole lot all throughout the book, right, about the tongue and how we speak all throughout this letter. Can you just imagine, though, what some of the believers might have been saying then? Maybe it'll ring a bell. They have this and I don't. They're not sick and I am. They're doing this sin and I'm not. Why aren't they having a hard time like I am? Remember, from the outside looking in. James says, don't grumble against one another. We all have issues in life. We just don't see others' issues because we're not wearing each other's shoes. Most of you know how to match them. I have challenges, issues, stressors. You have challenges, issues, stressors. Everybody has them. How about we spend less time grumbling against each other and more time praying for each other? Because, watch this, because there is one and only one place, or better yet, person, we're to compare ourselves to, and that person is Jesus Christ. And I guarantee you, when you do that, you fall way short. Who cares what others are doing or what they're thinking? Or even honestly, what they're going through other than to pray for them. Because it's not about comparing ourselves to that. Whatever it is that we are going through, think of it like this, please. Is it the cross of Calvary that you did not deserve, but rather you chose? No, there's only one that comparison applies to, right? Anything short of that, how do you stand against Christ? How do I stand against Christ? That's who's going to judge you. That's who's going to judge me. Not mama, not daddy, not the neighbor, not the preacher, or anyone else. And if not for the grace of God, we all fall short. Only one life. Only what's done for Christ will last. Life, living for Christ, it's worth it, number 4, when we realize this, that there is a purpose. See, it's getting better as we move through this, because look at verse 10. James says this, as an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, verse 11, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. Who have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. James is, he's pointing out some of the prophets of ages gone by, and then he names Job by name, who suffered so much, but we clearly see their purpose now. Pretty decent explanation, right, of what faith and how to apply it is, and we've heard it. I know life only makes sense looking at it in reverse, right, but it must be lived going forward. What you're going through, what I'm going through, what we all will be going through at some point, it's all worth it. I'm not promising that, though. Who cares if I promise that? He promises that. His word promises that. That's what we stand on. His word says it. The pain, the suffering, the hard times, the good times. There's good times too. It's all there. It's worth it. It absolutely is. I'm convinced, I know I've said it before, and one day I've got to come up with how to describe it better. I'm convinced one day when everything is said and done, we who are followers of Jesus Christ, when we're in eternity together, I'm convinced that we will be able to see like a grand movie, all the details of life and how everything fit into God's purpose. And I just can't wait for that moment. We will see the purpose of all things in life from His perspective. And how they all fit into eternity in God's grand plan. And it'll be that big moment. It's worth it. Only one life. Only what's done for Christ will last. Life, living for Christ, it's worth it. Watch this, number 5, to be practical. Look at verse 12. But above all, my brothers, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. Remember, we've really throughout the whole series of James, as we've been going through this, we've pointed out how practical the whole letter is, the whole book, much like Proverbs. James is basically saying, just be who you are. Don't make grandiose statements or try to glorify yourself with lofty language. Just be real.